Hi, I'm Suki. Welcome to Getting Psychic, where you can listen to me use myself to test the theory that anyone can get psychic. Hello and welcome to Getting Psychic. I'm here with Lori Stahl. Lori's Vibrational Sound Therapy practice, the Vibrational Sound Therapy Center, offers sound immersion meditations and individual and in-person or distance biofield tunings and sound balancing sessions. Lori's soul meditations are very gong dominant, and she uses source point therapy in sound meditation and sessions. Well, I just want to say, if I listed all of Lori's interests and skills, this introduction would last for hours, but I'll just add a couple more. Lori earned her master's beekeeper certification through Cornell University and has served in several capacities representing honeybees at a state level. Lori is often called upon to retrieve and rehome honeybee swarms. Hi, Lori. Welcome.
Hello.
Thanks for being here. So, how did you end up like this?
I just try to stay wide open and go where I'm called.
Follow your excitement.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why we're both here.
Indeed.
Is there anything about your early life that indicated that you might find yourself on a podcast called Getting Psychic?
I don't think that I have any standout story. I think it's, if there's one thing I would say, for whatever reason, I've always very strongly known to just trust my intuition and follow that and that alone. So
Yeah, what a gift. It is like a beautiful thing to be tuned into. It leads you all sorts of strange and amazing places.
for sure.
Clearly. I mean, I didn't even get to the internationally published winemaking book that you wrote, but we're here to focus on vibration. And I find it so interesting that you're a master beekeeper and you use tuning forks in healing sessions. I heard once that people who raise bees have a significantly, is raise the right word? Have a significantly longer life expectancy than those of us who don't.
I too have heard that.
Do you have any insight as to why that might be?
I think, like anything, it's probably a little more complicated than an obvious answer, because the first thing I would think of is that certain types of people would be drawn to tend to the bees. Um, there is definitely a lot of surprisingly positive health benefits from receiving the venom of the honeybees. So
Mm.
even though everyone thinks, I don't want to be stung by a bee, the bee's sting can be quite a gift. And then just being in the field of the vibration of the bees is just amazing. And it was actually the bees that led me to do the work with sound and vibration.
Well, how did they lead you there?
Just through the realization of how much they do with sound and vibration. I have it, one of the other things that I do beyond just capturing all the swarms is that I get the call when bees have moved into people's walls,
Mhm.
and I have to go and like play detective and figure out exactly where the colony is and how big it is, and like, is it better to cut the outside of the house or the inside of the house or the floor or the ceiling or whatever, and then open the cavities and remove the bees. And from seeing, I mean, I've been doing this for so many years now, and I've done so many each year. I've learned probably more through that than anything, because I get to see what the bees do when humans have not imposed architecture and management. And I just get to and I also have come to really understand how much they use vibration, how they communicate with it, all the things.
Yeah, yeah, that's crazy.
Mhm.
Well, wait, I need to know, what what happens when they're not, I'm assuming when you say imposed structure, you mean hive?
Yes, there's all kinds of configurations that people throughout the world use, but predominantly we put them in boxes that are a particular size with frames that are a particular size, and we manage them in particular ways to make it easy on us, not
Yep.
necessarily how they would do it.
Yeah, so how do their structures differ when they're not influenced by us?
Well, the main difference is that most beekeepers put the bees inside a rectangular frame, so there is wood all the way bordering it, and then they draw their comb within it. But in nature, they typically only attach the comb at the top, and the bottom is a free-form rounded thing. Now, there are some hives that are called top bar hives that have just a bar on the top and are more like the traditional way, but they are not the norm. The
Mhm.
the norm is to use those rectangular frames. And I think that changes the ability because they basically they come back and they do this elaborate dance on the comb, and that dance communicates to their sisters, oh, we found this beautiful patch of these gorgeous flowers with the yummiest nectar, and it's like over yonder. And the dance very particularly locates exactly where that is, and the more excited they are, the faster and more times they do the dance. It's called the waggle dance, and it's a whole elaborate system. um, but I think, it still works when the comb is contained, but I feel like it's very different. And there's also typically they only dance in once there's only like one dance floor in the hive. And so if we get in there and start moving things around, and
Yeah, it actually interrupts their communication. That's
Mhm.
crazy.
And then because I've caught so many swarms, like one spring I caught 30 swarms in a spring, which is crazy. Like that's a lot of, like, I'm basically like a doctor on call 24 hours a day, and my phone can ring at any moment. I have to like drop everything and race off to try to get them before they move into somebody's house, because it's so much easier to pluck them out of a tree than to cut the wall and do the whole thing. But when the swarms are all hanging, they're all hanging in a big ball on each other, and they even do the dance on the surface of the ball to let other scout bees know, they're seeking, where can we move into, what crack of someone's home can we make be our new home. And just the whole way that the swarms act, like when once you sort of drop a swarm into a box, you can tell if the queen is among them, because they all turn around and put their butts in the air and they fan out this pheromone to let all the other bees that didn't make it into the box know we're here now. And just there's just so many behaviors that they have that are just mind-boggling.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, wait, did we connect the dots on how they led you to vibrational sound therapy?
I don't know if there's a direct dot pattern other than just the realization of the importance of that. There are also places in Eastern Europe and Asia where they will sleep on top of their hives, because they came to realize that when humans lay on the beehive, the vibrations come up into the human's body, and it can really help reset the nervous system and pull inflammation out. So I've actually been working on designing my very own bee bed so that people will be able to come and lay on top of the bees.
Oh my god,
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
I need to do that someday. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about healing with tuning forks. Now, there's a modality called Biofield tuning, which
Hmm.
you have studied extensively. And then there's just vibrational sound therapy.
Hmm.
And those are just differentiated because,
So yeah, basically, I've just studied with numerous teachers,
yes,
and each of those particular teachers have come at the system from their own place.
yes.
So I would say my greatest mentor has been Dr. Jean Bouillet. He's classic French pronunciation. And his company is Biosonics. And he was actually the head of psychiatry at Bellevue Psychiatric Hospital. And he ended up deciding to go back to college to become a naturopath. And when he was assigned to a lab at the college he was at, it just so happened that it was a lab that the CIA had been using for research in the 50s, and they had left behind an anechoic chamber. And John, who is also a classical pianist and like just rather otherworldly in his guru and spiritual abilities, spent hundreds and hundreds of hours meditating in that anechoic chamber, which is complete sensory deprivation. And through the time spent in there, became able to completely recognize all the sounds of his body's system. So he knew, oh, that's my circulatory system. That's the sound of my nervous system. Because there's no true silence. Like it just made all that loud. And one morning he was on his way to school, and he always says he was like a farm boy from Indiana. He was not used to the whole like New York City vibe. And he got to the subway, and there was some irrational subway worker who freaked out on him for nothing. And I guess he went through school the whole day and like had more or less forgotten about it, but he went into the chamber and realized that his nervous system was screaming still, like, ah! And he says it just came in a flash. Like it was just like I need to tune myself. And it was New York City. And of course, there was a music store across the street or whatever. And he went over there and he bought a tuning forks and knew to use the C and the G tuning fork. And I happen to have one right here. So why don't I just um, basically just holds the one by one ear, one by the other ear. And so the binaural beat or the space in between creates the perfect fifth. And I think he did like 2 activations of the forks, and his nervous system was completely like
Oh
regular.
my God.
And he says, I spent the next 50 years of my life trying to figure out what happened in that chamber on that day. And he tells, I mean, because of the nature of the work that he did throughout his life, like he would go to like war-torn countries and meet children whose parents had been like blown up while walking down the street and hadn't spoken in years. And he would like manage to somehow just get enough eye contact to get permission. And the forks would like a child who hadn't spoken in 2 years spoke. Like it
Oh
it
my
it
God.
could pierce in that way.
Yeah.
Um and so initially I was really drawn to learn about and study biofield tuning, and then it was through one of my biofield tuning mentors that I learned about John. And it was one of those things where he hosts a few times a year at his home these 3 and 4 day very intensive trainings, and they were always sold out. No one could get in. And my mentor mentioned that he was going to be going to one of these, and I was like, I have to be there. Like, and of course I tried, and they were like, yeah, no, there's no space at all. Sorry. And I just kept being persistent. I was like, if anyone can come, even if it's the last possible second, it's like 3.5 hours. I can drive there. Like, just, and someone couldn't make it, and I got the spot. And then like any chance I could get to any of them, I did, and was fortunate enough to be at many of them. And people flew from all over the world, and it was just such a open atmosphere, and there was so much exchange that happened. Like I'd meet a pranic healer, and she'd be like, I'll do a session on you, and you do a session on me, and you biofield to me, and like it was just so magical. And I'm so grateful to have had that door opened. And the biofield tuning work is it all comes at the same thing, just in different ways.
Right.
The biofield tuning work, Dr. Eileen Day McCusick was she basically lived in a really quiet place in Vermont, and she was a massage therapist. And on a kind of a lark, what felt called like, I'm going to order some tuning forks, was literally just sort of like starting to play with them, and in her massage sessions with people she was really familiar with, and then began getting like outcomes like, oh, that shoulder that's been bothering me forever suddenly doesn't hurt now. And one day she happened to have activated a fork, and there was a really loud noise outside, and she walked across the room to the window to see what had made this noise. And as she traveled across the room, the fork that was activated made some pretty dramatic tonal changes. And, she figured out what made the noise, I guess, and then was like, whoa, what was that? And I think her curiosity really led her to dive in. And she, through just working on people and working on people and working on people, and then going back to college and doing a master's program to kind of try to figure out what is happening. Why am I getting these results? And it was like at a time when it was really hard to even find that information. Um, but that was her first book, Human.
Tuning the human biofield.
Thank you. Um, Perfect. Was the result of that college curriculum, and she didn't even feel ready to teach, and some of her clients kind of bullied her into teaching, and then it's just grown from there. Like there are thousands of biofield tuners now all over the world, and it's just a phenomenal. There's a group where all of the practitioners can exchange information, and it's just amazing the outcomes that people have. And in biofield tuning, we're basically working in the field around the body. She created this map and more or less mapped the field from, if you see 6,000 people and every person who has something off this area has the same thing, you can begin to hone in on this area of the field often has to do with this thing or that thing or the other thing. And it's almost like the record of our lives is laid down in our field. And it's incredible because if you activate a tuning fork, generally it should just be make a tone. Yet when you come into areas of disturbance in the field, that tone will change dramatically. If it was a time, say when somebody was depressed, the fork will go like this very low hum that almost sounds like that, or sad music. And I remember I'm very right brain, left brain. Like I was actually a chemical engineering major, but I would stay in the dark room till 4 a.m. every night. Like it's just this. I always joke and say spiral brained. So a part of me was all about like, yeah, I'm going to learn biofield tuning. And a part of me was like, what am I doing waving tuning forks around in the field around, like, this is absurd. And then I'll never forget, after I did my foundations training, we had to give like 20 sessions before we could qualify to go to practitioner training. And there were some girls who I had known in college who I hadn't seen for a very long time, but they both had very traumatic things happen in their lives. And so we decided to start getting together like one weekend a month to go for a hike or something, just to kind of help support them. And one weekend we were supposed to get together, and it was like pouring rain, and it just so happened I take care of people's pets sometimes, and it was this swanky mansion at the country club, and I was like, why don't you come to the swanky mansion and let me do my biofield tuning on you? And they were like, sure. And it was so interesting because I tuned the one girl first who had had a rather idyllic childhood, like life had been very la 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 la, and the fork's like la 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 through her field. And then I got to, I think she was like maybe 11 or 12, and the fork was like, and I was like, do you can you think of anything that might have happened around that time? And it's really interesting because sometimes it takes people a minute to get there, and then all of a sudden she's like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what that is. Our family was on a sailboat, and but there was an accident and we all almost died. And then I tuned the other friend from college, and she had had a very complicated and difficult life, and the fork was like, "Whoa," like it was just such a journey. And it was so, I think doing those two tunings like kind of side by side and really helped me to be like, okay,
This is a
and
thing.
yeah, this is really a thing. And then similarly, so I got to be like, this is a thing, but then I had to like really work with like, wait, we're gonna do this at a distance? How's this gonna work? Like I'm gonna call you on the phone, and you're gonna be where you are, and I'm gonna be here, and I'm gonna tune you. And it just so happened that when I went back to my practitioner training, there was a gentleman who lived in Austria, and he was incredible. He was I feel like maybe they're a little further ahead of us over there with some of their understandings. And I felt like I learned a ton from him, and we wanted to exchange sessions with each other, but neither of us were very into tech at all. And I said, what if we just say Wednesday at 3? We'll figure out the time difference, and like one week I'll tune you, and the next week you'll tune me, and when we finish the session, we'll just email each other like what happened. And it was mind boggling. Like I would work on him, no phone call, no connection whatsoever, just at that time. And then he would send me an email and be like, oh, I thought you were working off my right knee and blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, whoa, that's exactly where I was. And so that was like a super helpful way for me to like understand that, oh, this is really a thing. And I've come to really feel like in many ways my distance sessions are a lot stronger than my in-person sessions. And I somewhat intuit it has to do with two things. One is that I'm so much more focused because I'm like, wait, where's their head? What's right? What's left? Like, and it just keeps my presence very like solidly there, my tension. But I think the second thing is that we as humans are so accustomed to veiling our emotions, and I think that when someone's not in the room, you can be exactly where you are, and it flows.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So I was reading like both of Eileen's books at the same time because when I get excited about something, I want to
dive
consume
in.
it. Yeah, I'm like, oh, I need to consume this. And one thing as a person who's sort of newly discovering this that really stood out to me in her explanation was one, interestingly, the field that spreads like 6 feet around us that holds all of these pockets of information. She kind of figured out the timeline
Hmm.
moving from 6 feet away from your body in towards your body, where you find pockets of dissonance or resonance. You can have a pretty good understanding of the time in the life where this interruption in the vibration happened. And also it aligns with the field, the map of the field. Also, one looks like a human brain, and two aligns with so many other spiritual practices in that the right side of the body represents father and the left side of the body represents mother.
Hmm.
So another interesting element to all of this is that I met you at the first module of a source point therapy class in Brooklyn. So that's a completely different modality. It doesn't use vibration, it's a form of energy work, but you work with sacred geometry and you use these points around the body. And last night, when you were actually giving me vibrational therapy, I realized that the point of a body on the right side, that's quote unquote the father point in biofield tuning, is the same as what is called the source point in that modality that we were using.
Hmm.
And at this point in the game, it's kind of like not surprising that all of these either channeled or sort of downloaded modalities that unfolded over time align, but it's forever. I mean, it's just riveting. But so one thing that she said too was sort of like to explain where the pockets of dissonance come from. And correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is sort of like we have our, like she gives the example in one of her books as like if you meet someone who's had a really hard life and they're like an older person and they're just energetically essentially just like broken down from their life, it is as if all of their energy is just spilled out into their field. And that really like made it all make sense to me.
Hmm.
And the job of the tuning fork is to comb through the field and bring it back to our energy centers, aka chakras. They're real. we we had a whole episode called "Chakras Are Real" when uh, when we in fact confirmed that that was true. But so that's the point, right?
Indeed. Yes. And often when I finish a session, people come off the table and they're like, whoa, I feel so much lighter. Like, and their faces just glow and their eyes are so bright. And like, it's amazing. It really is like all that energy is like kind of tangled up in a knot out there. And then the fork runs into it and alerts us by the tonal change, like the "ee" or the or the whatever. And then you stay with it until the tone resolves, and in the tone and the body recognizes, wait a minute, I'm out of tune there. And in
Yeah,
meeting the to try to become in tune with the tone, I think that's like where the releasing of the energy happens. And then yeah, we bring it in and drop it into the chakra, and then it's just available to the body. And it's amazing how it works.
it's so amazing. And I really have this formed this belief that, I mean, I it can fix anything. And I hesitate to use the word fix, but it can realign so many things to put us in the at least ideal state for our bodies.
Yes, Eileen does really caution us. I don't want to. I want to be, just to clarify for all the psychics, that if someone is in a like a terminal state or very deep into something, we don't always even recommend using biofield tuning, because depending on what's there, there can be a, we've changed from using the word detox to using the word a cleansing or a healing response. But there's a concern that if someone is too far along, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
That
just
makes
want to make
sense.
that clarification.
Yes, please, all the
Yeah.
disclaimers. I don't wanna yeah, in fact, yeah, it doesn't seem very safe for me to be like, "This can fix anything."
um,
Um,
but the other thing that was cool was in a lot of my trainings there were acupuncturists and chiropractors who were tired of adjusting a 30-year hip pain, and knew that it wasn't and it was so amazing to have them in my trainings with me, and to have them be so lit up at the possibility of sort of unlocking that physical component that was really what that hip pain, how it was manifesting.
yeah, you mean energetic component?
Yes. Energetic, emotional. I think,
Yeah, yeah.
it's a little.
Alright. Yes, it's I mean, okay, so we've established it's freaking incredible. Okay, so and then I mentioned before, I've had 2 sessions from you, 1 last week and 1 last night. And both of them are interesting because, like, I get a lot of energy from them, which was kind of unexpected. But we need to obviously delve into the psychic part of it, because I don't, you can say whatever you want about your level of like, I just have intuition. Cool, but I've experienced your knowing during the session, and it is very poignant. And like last night, for example. Oh wait. Let's talk about this first. So, it's I think I found this to be really fun because the first time we did a session last week, I was also pretty tapped in and maybe like receiving messages or intuition, right? And you were doing that at the same time. And where do you even live?
I live in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Okay, so you're in Pennsylvania, I'm in Chicago. And do you use a bed or placeholders when you do remote biofield tuning? Like, what does that look like on your
It
end?
can be, I it doesn't matter where I am. I don't. A lot of people lay out a body and do a fixed thing, but
So do you? do you move around or do you just stay in one place and set the intention?
I do some moving, but then for parts of it, I may intend it instead of telling you to flip over or whatever.
Yeah, right, you just intentionally flip me over.
Mhm.
I mean, for me, like, I need confirmation of things as well because I despite how it might sound, I actually am, like, discerning
Yes.
a and use discretion when exploring things, but it's interesting because it seems like the validation comes when you need it, and it's like, for you, it was the guy in, where was he?
Austria.
In Austria being like, "We're doing remote tuning," and feeling and knowing and recognizing like, "Oh, yeah, this is actually doing something." And for me, it was like, telepathically communicating with animals across the country. Like, there's this is real. There's no coincidences. Okay. So there was a point, and I didn't tell you anything before you started because you didn't ask. Apparently, you don't need to. And you were like, "Oh, I'm kind of stuck at your throat." And I didn't tell you that one of my main concerns is like a quote unquote thyroid condition that I am determined to not be entangled with. And so you're like, you stopped there. And then I was getting the nudge repeatedly that I needed to say what it was. And it wasn't like me being like, oh, I should share my feelings. It was like a physical bubble of shame came up and it connected my heart and my throat. And it was a bubble. And it kind of interestingly goes back to my last interview, where we talked about emotional alchemy. So it's like it had a shape and it had an emotion and it had a time. And I was like, Lori, okay, I have to tell you that this blockage that you're finding has to do with childhood shame. And then, like, the second those words came out of my mouth, you say, it popped. And I don't know what that was like from your end, but somehow you were like, oh, yeah. What was it like from your end? Like you were just able to move through that resistance?
Yeah, Eileen uses the language of that we have a mail slot, and it's that area back there by the occipital ridge, and
Yeah, I love
it's
this.
it's it's quite accurate. Like the information is just there. Like I used to be very precise, like how old are you? And I would lay things on the floor and put quarter life, half life, third, 3/4 life, so I knew
Oh, wow.
the age. Like I know they say now the rings of a tree thing isn't what we used to think, but it's still a fairly good example. Even though it's not a real example anymore. But it's it and the other thing that's really interesting in the sessions is it really is like it's your mail slot too. And I've had really interesting things happen. Ironically, it seems to happen more with much older men, but they actually fall into loops from their childhood, and they are literally back in their childhood homes, like walking through them, walking to school, like they are there in a way that is like uncanny for that. Like I don't know how to say it. You never know what's going to happen in a session, but I always believe that what happens is what needs to happen to help the system be more in flow. However, I think I told you an example of once I had this pain where I felt like my head was going to explode, and I never get a headache. I'm like so lucky.
Mhm.
But I sometimes I can just like run into something and go by it and trust that the sound resolved it and the person didn't need to get in. And sometimes I don't even want to go into story, but sometimes it feels important to be in the story and to like you said, I I do have to say this, like you knew you
Yes,
had to.
I was being told to say the
Yes.
words.
And I remember once it was the head thing, and finally the guy and I just stayed there because I knew that he had to get to it, and he suddenly was like, my brother threw a brick at me and it hit me right here, and the second he said it, my head was fine. And I'm sure that it was a major, like, thing that then now all that energy from that is back to him, and he has it to
Wow.
use.
Yeah, so it's person to person and session to session. It's not like everyone always has to call out everything at all. In
Hmm.
fact, that seems less it seems more rare. I mean, I've done 2 sessions, so I'm a pro. But there were only like a couple times where we needed to actually like talk about a thing. But so back to the mail slot really quick.
Hmm.
Everyone listening has one. And actually after I read Eileen's description of basically it's basically Claire knowing or it's basically just like receiving messages and it's just a knowing. But I love her description of it because it really feels like that. And so for people whose main thing is just like they've been intuitive their whole lives or they've just known things, it's just like a really fun description. But information just comes and it's very interesting that in these sessions with you it's mutual. That's super cool. And I want to point out another thing just for fun. Like there's not a lot of talking that happens before you just start
Hmm.
dinging and and like at some point um I don't know, we were you don't talk through the whole thing because you need to be listening to the forks. But at some point, we were talking about something, and I said, "Yeah, I've been fortunate enough that I'm fortunate, and I've never been prone to depression. I'm just like not a depressed person." And you said, "Oh yeah, I know." Like, you're like, "Oh, yeah, that tone didn't show up for you."
Hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, it's just such a distinctive sound. The like it's Eeyore, like it's,
Yeah.
and there's almost a quality of heaviness to it, and there was just absolutely none of that in your field. And yeah, I just think we all it's almost like everybody is playing badminton, right? And you develop your own way of like trying to hit that thing, which is what the all the different, you know some people are like, "Ah!" And some people are like,
Yeah, go inward. Yeah.
and some people are like, it some people are just like, shake it up, like it.
Alright, so tell me, when you meet someone,
Mhm.
which I'm sure you've met many, or you're doing, um, sound therapy on a person who has a lot of that vibration, the depressed or anything in for that matter, but, like, you're hearing a lot of that depression. Um, what can be a result of a session? Like, are you putting that making that changing the vibration of it, putting it back in the chakras and, like, packing it up?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
what are some results that you've seen?
people are like, biofield tuning has completely changed my life. Like it's pretty amazing when I mean, very often I might just see people here and there, they kind of come when they really are
Yes, like
in
acute
turmoil
problem.
or conflicted or whatever. But I do have some other people who it's a way more regular and methodical thing, and it's just incredible, the shifts in their own beings. It's really like it's almost like we all come out of childhood with hauling 30 sandbags, and then you cut a couple free each session, and then before you know it, you're like floating. And I don't want to just, it's not utopian for everyone, but it is very much a lightening of those past burdens.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. That's so cool. Well, like last night you were wavering, you're like, "Do I need to say it? Should I bother saying this? Whatever." And then I said, "I'm not afraid to like look at anything that you're finding, so go for it. And you said, "There's, like, unresolved anger towards your father." And I think my response was, "No shit." And then you got a letter in your mailbox and said, "His lineage is trying to help you, like, the souls of my ancestors, essentially, are trying to help, and they're also kind of acting like sandbags. So I do think that it's important for you to say thank you, express gratitude, and say, 'I got this.'"
And forgiveness.
Oh, and forgiveness. See, that's where I get hung up. I was like, "Oh, I know there was, like, another part."
Yeah,
Uh,
like I just really felt like it was really important to have like a really, really real gratitude for like that you're here. You know what I mean? That
yeah,
all of what they all went through led to you getting to have this life now. But like and like a true I'm grateful, and even though it was a shit show and it could have been like done with so much more grace, like you have to find a way to like do the real deal forgiveness,
yeah,
but and the I got this, like I definitely
yeah.
felt like a sense of like they're trying to help but they're not being helpful.
Oh my god, I love that I forgot that part. It seems very
You forgot it last night too.
Yeah, I know, I'm like, "Am I not hearing this?" I am forgetting it. Well, that I might need to get
There's your
retuned.
homework.
Yeah, it's crazy. But, okay, so that was a very spiritual element to that work, It's not just, like, vibration. That was like a cord cutting and a soul retrieval and, a little bit of
it
everything, but extremely
Yeah,
spiritual.
but the work you're doing right now for you is the work you're doing for your entire lineage, backwards and forwards. Like I mean, even though who knows time, right, like
Right, we need to say backwards and forwards, but that's just it's all
quantum stuff is a
happening.
little like hard for me to get a grip on, but it's huge. It's way more than this. It's the all,
Yes.
it's the whole, it's everything. Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
because everything's happening at the same time, and I said in the first one, I suddenly was like, "Oh, this is helping my son."
Mhm. Yeah.
And I just, that came into my mailbox. So it is really fun to have like that mutual exchange and both be receiving information about it. It's like so wild. So thank you. All right. So, I mean, we tapped on your bee bed. You also talk about following your excitement. Okay. You're also a crystal miner.
Mhm.
That was one thing that stood out from when I met you in New York. I was like, "Oh, that's cool. I wanna know more about that." So how did that come to be part of your life?
So it must have been 25 or more years ago. Somehow I heard about Herkimer diamonds, and uh, I was always really drawn to crystals. I would, go if there was a rock show near me, I would go, and there were a few shops that had crystals, and I would go in, and I the that kingdom just really always spoke to me. But I heard about Herkimer diamonds, and it lit me up like nothing else has ever lit me up, and I just was like, I want to have Herkimer diamonds that no other human hands have touched. Like I want to like pull. They're 4.5 million years old. I want to take them out of the earth and use them to help people, and just have it be that direct of a thing. And lucky for me, my home puts me just about exactly a 5 hour drive from where the area in Herkimer, New York, that had the very particular set of geological conditions that allowed the Herkimer diamonds, which are these lovely, double terminated quartz crystals to form. And so I had a friend who had to go to some work thing and said, "You want to ride along?" And I was like, "Sure, you can drop me off at this place that I'm going to try to mine for crystals that day." And it was like, it was really unseasonably cold and the weather wasn't that great. And like, there was one other person at the mine that I went to that day. And I've been fixing up an old mill for over 2 decades now. Um, and I had found this like, um, really old stonemason who had been a stonemason since he was 12 years old, and he was in his late 80s when we finished working together. And I think we started working together when he was in his mid 70s. And so it was one of those things where he was helping me fix this place up, and at first he wouldn't let me help him because I was a woman, and he was of that era. And then eventually he'd be like, "Okay, you can sweep," and then he would be like, "Okay, you can chisel the mortar." And then finally I got to mix the mud, and he was really hard on me. He'd be like, "What are you making soup over there?" Like it was hilarious. I was like, "Who works for who here? Like, what is even?" But I had some knowledge of working with rock through that experience, and I had masonry tools, which are not at all what you need to mine, but that's what I had. And so off I went. And thank goodness, go universe, the only other person in the mine happened to be a man who had a online business called, I don't know what, I forget exactly. Like it was just, he solely dealt in Herkimer diamonds that he had mined. And he only came down from New England a few times a year. And it just so happened that he was there and I was there. And apparently he's kind of crusty, and all the miners say he doesn't normally speak to anyone. But I think he must have just been like, "That's pathetic." And finally said, "Come over here," and like really showed me some things. And he had figured out that if you take the old leaf springs out of cars that have the metal has the right amount of ability to be able to get pounded on to take advantage of a tiny crack in a rock, and then you can split the rock. So basically there's different ways to find the Herkimer diamonds. Some of them are just in the dirt, some are under tree roots, but the most beautiful ones are in what we call pockets, where there's this 450 million-year-old dolostone, but then within the dolomite there's like areas where there were holes, and within those holes this like super saturated liquid forms the crystals. So basically you get into a pocket and people think these things are shaped and polished, and I'm like, no, that's how they formed in the earth. Like you pluck this magic like out of there. And if he hadn't helped me that day, I would have never gotten a crystal. But I got crystals and I brought them home, and it was like amazing. And I always wanted to get back, but I was a mom, and my kid was very active, and there just wasn't space for it. So it took me, I don't know how many years to finally get back up there. But finally, when she was off to college, I ended up like, I think it was a Memorial Day weekend, and I realized I didn't have anything to do, and I was like, I'm just gonna go. And I threw my tent and my as many tools as I could figure out to bring, and off I drove. And it was like the minute I went up there on that trip, I was just like hooked. And the thing that was incredible to me is the the mining community has just welcomed me in ways that blow my mind. Um, I, I- then the same thing happened when I went to Arkansas. Like people I barely knew through Facebook were like, "Oh, do you want to come to our son's second birthday party while you're in Arkansas?" And like, um, "Oh, you can camp at my claim for free. You can mine there if you like." People just the Crystal Kingdom has just welcomed me in ways that are incredible. And the mining community, it's a tribe, and the people in it are, I mean, they're all very intense, but it's an amazing thing. And so it's like it almost, I've come to think of it as, in a way, the crystals almost pick us. Like I'm like, who goes on vacations and spends 12 to 14 hours a day literally pounding rock, you're moving massive pieces of rock, piles of dirt. Like it's physically grueling. Like, and I'm like, who calls this your vacation? Like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I go to an island and sip frozen drinks? Like, but it's like I think the crystals want to come out of the earth, and I think they want to get into the hands they're meant to get into. And like and I say that about the bees too. People are like, "You keep bees." I'm like, I think the bees keep me more because of just what it takes to do the work. But I think the crystals somehow, and I've had the most incredible dreams where it's almost like the crystal gods are like showing me every potential like formation and termination and the way they grow in the earth. Like it's just amazing. And I try to be very patient, but I am feeling like there's a lot more that I'm meant to understand about the crystals that I don't quite fully understand yet. And I'm like, I I am so looking forward to deepening why I've been called there. I had one of the old wise miners tell me once that I've been called there because I'm in some way going to help people, help like humanity to understand how to use them better. But I don't even know if I know yet. So it's like, okay,
I trust that you
I'm
will
all
find
in.
out. Yeah. Okay, so a couple things that came to mind while you were talking. The people who mine crystals are so giving and generous and welcoming you with open arms because of their exposure to crystals. That was a huge thought while you were talking. And then I wanted to ask you, do you think that the crystals are sentient?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Can you talk about their consciousness?
That's the part that I mean, all I can tell you is sometimes I'll hold a crystal in my hand and it shakes. Like it's like I get zaps of like but I don't, and I think this is a little bit why I resist using language that I'm psychic too, is that so I used to be a pretty serious photographer, and there's a thing called the zone system, which was like a very elaborate way to figure out how to exposure film. And I used to always joke and say I use the Zen system, but the reason that I used that metaphor was because I didn't want to be encumbered by technology, and I almost don't want my brain in it. Like I feel like I'm a clearer channel if I just can be open.
Sure.
Am I answering that?
No. um, well, what are you speaking to? Like when me saying, do you think crystals are sentient? It's kind of like
Yeah.
yes, and it doesn't matter.
Yes, and I don't know yet, and I don't even know if I want to know with my logical mind.
Yeah, love it.
Does
Yeah.
So I'm gonna reference the telepathy tapes when the Biofield tuning community is all lit up by that podcast, and
So all the communities are.
yeah, right. And when I was noticed that a practitioner posted, "Wow, has anyone seen this yet?" And the second I saw that, I was like, "What is that?" Like I just it called, and listen. I think I've listened to all of the episodes like 3 or 4 times. Like I just am like, oh, it brought tears, like just because. Like somehow I always knew iPhones were going to exist. And then when I finally had an iPhone, I was like, I've been waiting for this my whole life, just because I would lose the scrap of paper with the phone number. Just in that context of how easy it is to have it flow with your life, even though it sucks up too much of your life, but that's a sidebar. So, the, the, telepathy tapes are, it's like I feel like this is like the portal, the way we're all moving in that direction, and this is like where it's starting, like where it's like coming so much into the greater consciousness, if that's a way to say it. And
Yes.
so I'm like I'm definitely, like, I mean, clearly, like I'm doing sessions, and like I'm feeling my head's gonna explode because I feel like I mean, clearly something happens where you're able to be very attuned to where someone else is. And I've definitely been places and been like, oh yeah, the ghost has been over there all night. But I don't want to stand there and try to see the ghost, or I don't want to, like, I don't feel cold, I don't feel hot, I don't like see anything. I just no, I just know the ghost is over there. But like I don't necessarily feel like I want to or need to relate to the ghost. Maybe it's about that. Like, and I remember, I think I told you this story on the phone, but I was at a Quaker meeting in Washington, D.C., and a man kind of stood up and went on a rant. And it was quite fascinating because the Quakers had to silence him, but they're pacifists, and they did it in the most gentle, amazing. It was amazing to witness the whole thing, how it played out. And he was basically on this huge rant that he had a friend who was in the CIA's program, and that he left the program because the CIA was only having people view about things that were not about helping humanity whatsoever.
Yeah,
And
he's talking about remote viewing,
yes,
by the way.
and I at the time, like a week later, I got a brochure that Russell Targ, who was one of the CIA guys, was going to teach a workshop on how to do remote viewing. And a part of me is like, oh, I want to do that. And another part of me is like, oh no, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to be like a voyeur in someone else's brain. Like, do you know what? Like, it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I get what you're saying. And also, you know, a massive amount of ethical practices need to be applied with non-physical abilities for
hmm
sure. I've never gotten the impression that anyone unwanted is like inside my brain reading my thoughts, but maybe that's just a lack of awareness.
I can think of so many examples of like, whoa, I can't believe that just happened. Kinds of like, there's so many beautiful like synchronicities, and and I remember not too long ago I said something to my friend like, I don't know why any of this stuff surprises me, like it happens so, and she said, you do realize that it doesn't happen to everyone like that. And I was like, oh, okay, like it because I guess I didn't really realize that. I think I thought everyone would,
Was
experience and
having
recognize.
magical,
Yeah.
right.
So I don't know. That's a thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like what I'm hearing you say is kind of like you're content with what comes, and you don't feel the need to look at it with a magnifying glass or deepen it. Like you like the organic nature of your messaging.
Like, I really am grateful that you invited me to do this podcast, because in the last week and a half, I've really been giving a lot of thought to like discerning where what I take for granted or don't really realize, where the magic is that I just expect. I guess I'll say it like
Yep.
that. Um,
Yeah, it's cool. So, you mentioned the telepathy tapes, and in case there's any holdouts that who haven't listened to the telepathy tapes who are also listening right now, press pause. Just kidding. Finish this episode. There's only a few minutes left. And scooch over there and give it a listen. It's extremely validating. And it's about autistic individuals who are low to non speaking, and their telepathic and psychic abilities. And it's beautiful. But I kind of feel like like you mentioned something about about the direction that human beings are heading,
mhm,
and I kind of got that distinct feeling too, like they are, I don't know, like we're getting exposed to this right now so that we can have a better understanding of kind of where we're heading.
mhm,
And in a way, like we could bring interdimensional or extraterrestrial beings into the picture. Like that's how they're all said to communicate as well.
mhm.
So,
I loved the example in the telepathy tapes when she said that asking the non-speaking autistic people to try to spell what they're trying to say. And she said it's sort of like trying to suck an elephant through a straw. And I feel like, in a way, language is that. Like, it's these, like, I almost, especially spiritual language, I feel like so many of the terms have gotten so loaded, I don't even like to use them anymore. And I think we're in the the that communication is so much more, all the way around, fuller and clearer and not loaded. Like, it's just seems so much more direct. And I feel like there's so much, like, bias and judgment in all of us that we can't help but to have because of the conditioning of our, you know, family and society and everything else. But I feel like uh, a lot of that just eventually evaporates in our once we're all just open. And I really look forward to that.
yeah, yeah, it's cool. I mean, it is interesting that speaking and squeezing these giant ideas and feelings into little words, which are bursts of
Hmm.
vibration. I'm just trying to talk about how when people like you and I receive messages, like when that mailbox is open, it's not coming in words, it's coming in knowing, and we just have to put it in words. So it's so much bigger.
Hmm.
It's like the sentence that's coming isn't a sentence, it's just how we choose to put it into a sentence so we can communicate.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, can you imagine how much more expansive telepathic communication with each other must be?
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll just continue sucking elephants through straws, and we hope our point is made.
So I wanted to share one other story about
Please.
the, the way the universe just never ceases to astound me. So in the last few years, when I do my sound meditations, which I predominantly play gongs in those meditations, um, when they're finished, people come up to me and they're so like, "Oh, that was amazing!" Like, and a lot of people will actually tell me it's the first time ever that they've been able to shut off their monkey mind in their life. There's something about the gongs that just let people like drift into the stillness, into that other place. And I had numerous people coming up to me from like all directions saying, "Is this recorded anywhere? Can I listen to this?" And it wasn't anything that I had ever thought to do. And I was like, yeah, maybe I should think about recording. And I kid you not, like a day later, I get a Facebook message. There's a local blues band that I fangirl on them because they're just so talented. And I'll never forget the first time I heard the lead of that band playing guitar. It was at a little farmers market in a park, and I had gone like way up to use the bathroom at the art museum, and I was like making my way back through the park, and I guess he had set up while I was up there, and he was just starting to play, and the music was like drifting through the park, and I was like, "What is this?" And I happened to turn my phone video on, and as I walked through the park, I made the video, and I often did that to show the market and the scene and I came down and I came to him and he was just by himself playing the guitar and his soul was just like coming out in the music. And I get this Facebook message and he says, "Hey, myself and this other guy in the band were wondering if you'd ever consider collaborating with us and recording some music." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, oh my gosh, I'm so honored. I'm like, I'm on the brink of 60 and these 35-year-old guys want to have a band with me. Like, that's amazing. And like, so we did this thing all last winter where the pianist is the music director at his church, and it's this massive church with this massive grand piano, and we would meet there Thursday nights after the choir ladies left, and we were able to figure out how to turn the alarm system off and stay there till 3 or 4 or 5 in the morning, whatever it took. And we just went into this zone where we tried to figure out how to take a blues electric guitar and a grand piano and a gong, and to make music with it. And it was incredible. Like it was like learning a new language. And a lot of the songs that are, we made an album, and a lot of the songs that are on the album we maybe worked at. Maybe we had an idea, a sketch, and like recorded it 9 or 10 times until it said what it got to where we wanted it. But then the some of the times we wouldn't know what we were doing at all, and I would just make up prompts like, let's do something that feels like you're a little kid and you're at the Mayfair and you're skipping, and like be lighthearted and whatever. And I remember this one night I was like, I want to make a piece that feels like you're home and you're wrapped up in your coziest blanket, or like you've been out in the forest for a week and you finally dropped into that place where you're like, just and I want a lot of spaciousness, and like I really wanted it to just. And so the Ben particularly is very, he wants to like think about it and know what we're doing and blah blah. And I was like, don't say a word, like just hit record, like let's just see what happens here. And this thing happened, and it was like, I'm getting hackles just even telling you about it. But like when it was done, like I was crying, Francoise, like I got weepy, like we were just all like, what just happened? And it was hilarious because then Ben's like, do you think we should do another take? And I'm like, I don't think we could do another take on that if we tried. And it was so interesting because somehow the public TV station found out about our album and asked us to come and like play in the studio, and it was so awkward to try to figure out how to play that music. And we've since had people who want us to come and play, and we're like, we can have a listening party to the album, but I don't think we can try to play that. Like, and Ben the other night said, yeah, it was like trying to put lightning in a bottle making those recordings. And I was like, that is so what it felt like there was something about the way that it all came through, that and like we all felt what had come through, like. And I think uh, that's where the magic is in life. I think that's why I always want to stay open, because I feel like if I tried to get in the middle of that and think about what to do, you know what I mean, then it
Yes.
wouldn't let the so.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's about receiving for you, right?
Yeah, but my fullest intention with creating that music was to it's almost like give people a prescription. If you need to chill out, this is on Bandcamp. Just go listen to it. Like we don't care if you donate to us or not. I mean, just listen to it. Like it's we wanted to create something to help people have tools to find some peace.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah,
That's so cool. All right. Well, where can people listen to it?
on
So I'll
Bandcamp.
link it.
Yeah, I'll send you.
Okay, cool. I'll link it. And also, how can people book sound therapy
The
sessions with
it's
you?
My website is just vibrationalsoundtherapycenter.com, and there's a email through that, and just email me. I don't have
Okay,
booking software or anything. I'm
that's cool. We'll email you. Yep, I have to do another one.
nice.
All right. Well, here's what I have to say. You are so cool,
Aw.
and I appreciate so much just watching you follow your excitement, and it is such a good vibration. And I'm so excited to just be able to share you and your energy with my audience. And I need to learn from you. And I'm going to get in your backpack next time you go crystal mining.
Nice.
I'm like earlier, you were describing, um, you were like, yeah, 12 hours a day hacking at, rocks and using heavy thing for a vacation. I was like, that sounds awesome.
Nice.
Like while you were saying it, I was like, oh, but also the crazy part was, while you were talking, all the stuff that I said afterwards was just coming through the
Mm.
mailbox about the sentience of crystals and the kindness of the people because of their life surrounding crystals. And I was just like, oh, like so drawn to that. So just thank you very much. I'm very grateful that we connected.
And thank you very much. I would like to just shine back to you that one of the things, I've been listening to some episodes of your podcast, and one of the things I appreciate so much is how you beautifully, you ask a question, but then you ask a question and a question and a question and a question, like, but how do you do, no, and how do you do that, and how do you do that, and it takes someone who is doing that work to even know what those questions are, if that makes sense. But particularly the episode about remote viewing, like, it was amazing how much you got her to tell you about how she does it, and that was just so helpful to me. It was so fascinating to me, like, and so hooray for, you making time and space in your life to, help everyone move forward. Yeah.
Thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, but it's just like you. I'm like, oh, like I can't stop doing this. I'm just following my excitement, and what's unfolding is just like there's no monetary gain from this, obviously. It's just like I dedicate my time, but I gained so much because even just sort of like the sessions that I do with people as a prelude to the episodes, and just being in the energy of all these beautiful people is life changing. And being able to share that with people, and and also it's like I found some place to utilize my freakish level of curiosity. Like that's where those questions come from. I'm like, a little bit more, a little bit more. Like if I don't get enough detail when someone's telling a story, I just feel
Yes. Give me
so
the rest.
unsatisfied. I'm like, but what color shirt were they wearing? I need to see the whole
Aw.
thing. Anyway, okay, cool. Well, I'm sure we're going to be talking soon. You'll be bouncing some tuning forks around my
You
head.
know it.
Awesome. Thank you
Yeah,
so
thank
much,
you.
Lori. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as we did. Be sure to subscribe and follow us wherever you get your podcasts so that you never miss a new episode. If you liked today's episode, please consider leaving a review to help the other psychics find their way here.